Hello, everybody. Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Friday, September 20th, and oh boy, do we have a great show for you today. It is Friday. We're going over game picks. I have 10 of the best matchups in the college football slate from today and tomorrow. We will be going over every single NFL game, and of course, we're going to break down Drake Maye's first NFL game action. Finally getting into the game in a blowout against the New York Jets, a 24-3 loss, before finishing off our show with our famous Sports by GSMC Podcast Network Friday MLB Power Rankings. But before we get into any of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Friday, September 20th. But like I was saying, we are going to start off our show with the Thursday night football action. Drake Maye made his debut in a blowout, a 24-3 loss for the New England Patriots. A game that, as we talked about yesterday, the Patriots turned the ball over. Now, that's not the reason they lost this game. The Jets got it all together. Their defense looked coherent. Aaron Rodgers had his best game as a Jet by far in his short Jets career, getting his first win at home over a solid New England Patriots defense, throwing for nearly 300 yards on very good efficiency. Breece Hall and Braylon Allen carrying that offense. I am a little bit concerned about the passing game of the Jets as we take a look at it as far as nitpicking. Now, I understand Aaron Rodgers had a wonderful game, had a great game, right? You had a really good game from Allen Lazard as well, and it's awesome that we're seeing Aaron Rodgers spread the ball around. Tyler Conklin had a great game. It's good to see that the passing offense can work without Garrett Wilson, but the fact that Garrett Wilson has yet to have that signature game 3 games in to the NFL season with Aaron Rodgers and as his quarterback, it's a little bit concerning to me. I know teams are keying in on him. I know he had, he didn't have a lot of single coverage, right? When we're talking about looking at what Garrett Wilson is going up against compared to guys like Tyler Conklin, like Mike Williams, who had a couple of key catches down the stretch to really put the game away, like Allen Lazard, who scored that first touchdown. This is something he's going to have to get used to, and I think if anyone on the team has the ability to do it, that's going to be one Garrett Wilson. But we're seeing him kind of take a back seat in that offense, which, again, is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just something that is a little bit concerning as we start to get deeper into the season. I want to see a Garrett Wilson game. I want to see the Jets be able to have a Garrett Wilson game. But it's very good to see that against a solid Patriots team, a Patriots team that, if they don't turn the ball over, which they did do last night, if they don't fall behind, which they did do last night, is going to cause problems. Again, the Jets did a very good job last night of getting up early and keeping the pressure on the New England Patriots. They didn't let them control the pace of play, and that is why they were able to win 24-3, win so handily. Now focusing on the debut of Drake Maye, because this is the big story of the night. Drake Maye comes in garbage time, gets one drive. It wasn't the most impressive looking drive, and obviously he didn't lead them down the field to score points, but he did lead them down to the red zone. If they were managing the clock correctly, they might have, gotten a shot at the end zone. They had 3 timeouts, but at that point, they were just letting them go. It wasn't the most impressive thing. He got sacked a couple of times, holding onto the ball too long, looking for an open receiver. But all in all, it wasn't the worst debut. His first pass was a rifle into the slot, almost intercepted. that was not the best. He dinked and dunked his way downfield. A lot of Antonio Gibson, a lot of screen passes. He had one or two passes that were a couple yard past the line of scrimmage. He had one deeper pass in that intermediate 10 to 15 yard range. But outside of that, it was a lot of screen passes. It was a lot of dump offs to Antonio Gibson, backup running back. But he led a drive down the field, something that, Jacoby Brissett had been basically unable to do all game long. It wasn't the most impressive, but it was very, encouraging to see. There were signs there. He went out and he scrambled. He had the athleticism to get to the edge past some of these defensive ends in the league, which, again, that's something that you want to see. Drake Maye isn't a guy that's known for his legs. Drake Maye isn't a guy that we're looking at here and saying if he can't run for 100 yards, he's going to be screwed in the NFL. That's not what we're looking for him to do. But the fact that he has that escapability, the fact that he has the athleticism to escape from the pocket and pick up those yards is an encouraging sign for this New England Patriots team that's just going to continue to grow under this young coaching staff with this young quarterback. Jacoby Brissett is still, I think, a little bit better for now as far as starting the games go. And I don't expect the Patriots to make that change right now, but he does look close to being ready. He does look like a guy that I think getting that first NFL action was really good for him. He got to see the game speed. Now in practice, he's going to know what he's up against. He's going to know he can't hold on to the ball for 3, 4, 5 seconds at a time. He's going to know he needs to get the ball out quick. That's what Caleb Williams is learning right now. He had his welcome to the NFL moment. He took a tough, big hit sandwiched between two Jets defenders early on in that first drive of his. That's a solid welcome to the NFL moment. He's going to be ready when his name is called on in a couple of weeks, and I'm very excited to see it. I think Drake Maye looked solid. Again, it wasn't the best. It wasn't the worst. He didn't turn the ball over. He didn't score a touchdown, but he did drive the Patriots down the field. Excuse me. Because of that, I'm excited for him. We'll talk about it more a little bit next week when we get into our NFL rookie report later on down the line. But encouraging stuff out of the third overall pick in this year's NFL draft. I'm excited to see what happens. The Jets, they finally stepped it up. They finally put it together. They got a quick start on offense, and that's what we've been waiting for that offense to really click. I don't think this was the offense clicking at full potential. I don't think this was the best defensive effort, but that defense, it overwhelmed, simply, the offensive line of the Patriots, which a good defense should do. So, encouraging sign from the Jets as well. They look like they're getting close to where we expected. This isn't the super dominant defense that, we all thought, or at least I thought it would be. It isn't the super dominant offense that a lot of people thought they would be, but we kind of saw vintage Aaron Rodgers come back, and that's a very good sign for the Jets' chance at a playoff/Super Bowl run this season. But let me know what you guys think. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this game. Did you think Drake Maye looked ready? Did you think Drake Maye should be the starter next week? Let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to get into our game picks. We're going to start off in the NFL, predict every single NFL game, all of them from over the weekend on Sunday. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't need shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't replaced all this my town. If I want that
like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we just finished going over the Thursday night blowout between the Jets and the Patriots that we got to see Drake Maye in his first NFL action. If you want to hear more about that, go check it out. In this segment here, we are going to get into our game picks. It is Friday, so we're hitting the NFL and college football. We're going to start off in the NFL, hit all of the game action for Sunday. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Friday, September 20th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into our game picks. It is Friday, starting off in the NFL for Week 3. We had, I'm not going to sugarcoat this, a bad week last week. I'm not going to lie to you. We went 7-9. We're going to look to turn that around. Starting off with Philly at New Orleans. Maybe the game of the week, surprisingly. We talked a lot about New Orleans this week, whether or not they are a real team. 15-15 is a big enough sample size, I think, that this offense, while it won't be perfect, obviously, this is not a streak that they can continue forever, this is going to be a very good offense. In New Orleans, the Saints are favored by 2.5 points. We just saw Philly come off an embarrassing loss where they choked away the game in the final 2 minutes to the Atlanta Falcons, a game that they had a 99.3% chance of winning. This game should be a lot of fun. If you're looking for one of the best early window games, really one of the best games of the entire week, this is going to be one of them. This is going to be a high-scoring game for both sides, I think. I think this is going to be one of those classic early, mid-2010s NFL football games that gets super high scoring. I think New Orleans is for real. I think they have an argument to be the best team in the NFC. And I think if they win this game, they cement themselves as that best team in the NFC. I think New Orleans wins 38-27. Lots of points being scored, high offensive output. Derek Carr, they're not going to hit 40 points. Sorry to disappoint you, New Orleans Saints fans, but I do think this offense is good enough to hit 35, 38, somewhere around there against an Eagles defense that is susceptible to the past. While that secondary is much improved, getting guys like Kenyon Mitchell, getting guys like Cooper DeJean, who doesn't play that much, by the way, C.J. Gardner-Johnson returning from the Lions after one season of absence from Philadelphia, that is a much improved secondary. It's still not to the level that you want it to be as a Philadelphia Eagles fan. Because of that, we saw what Kirk Cousins was able to do down the stretch. I think the way that the Saints are playing, they should be able to gash them. And not even getting in the pass game, Bijan Robinson was killing them all day long. The Saints have been running the ball really well. They've been a run-first team for as much coverage as Derek Carr has been getting. They've been a run-first team. Alvin Kamara is going to have a really good game. This should be a lot of fun. Saints win 38-27. Up next on the slate, I think, is maybe the exact opposite of that game. I think this one is going to be a slugfest. The Los Angeles Chargers travel to Pittsburgh to take on Justin Fields and the Steelers. The Steelers favored at home by 1.5 points. This game is going to be fun. I'm actually very excited for this game. There's some slugfests like the Giants and Cleveland that I'll get to up next that is not going to be fun, but this one is going to be exciting. You have the Chargers, who clearly have an identity. Play Jim Harbaugh football. Run the ball down your throats. Going up against the Steelers, who also clearly have an identity. Beat you down defensively. This is going to be a very fun matchup. This is going to be one that, there's a chance this game ends 6-3. There's a chance this game ends 6-9, right? That's the kind of game I think this is going to be. I don't think there's going to be a single touchdown scored in this game. It's going to be a slugfest, seemingly like we're transported all the way back to the 1920s in football, before the forward pass was invented. I think this is just going to be a completely different style of game than we have seen in a very, very long time. Jim Harbaugh, J.K. Dobbins, they're going to run the ball as much as they possibly can. And Pittsburgh's defense is very good. I don't know if you guys knew that. There's this guy named TJ Watt. He's going to go up against first-round pick Joe Alt. Joe Alt, who shut down one of the best edge rushers in the league in Week 1 in Max Crosby. That is going to be the matchup to watch. Whichever one of those two wins the matchup, that team is going to win the game. If TJ Watt is able to be that game wrecker that he has been for the first 2 weeks of football, the Chargers aren't going to do much of anything. If Joe Alt is able to slow down TJ Watt, you don't necessarily have to stop him every time, but if you can make him not have 3 sacks, not have 5 tackles for loss, if you can slow him down, not give up a pressure on a lot of plays, get him out of the play, the Chargers are going to win this game. That being said, I think TJ Watt is playing on a whole other level right now. Him and Aiden Hutchinson, the way that they're getting pressure on quarterbacks right now through the first 2 weeks of football is kind of unprecedented. I don't think I've seen that kind of pass rush success win rate in a very, very long time. It's very impressive to see. I have Pittsburgh winning this game 15-18. Close one, no touchdowns, only field goals. Classic 2024 NFL, am I right? Then we get to the other slugfest. The New York Giants, my New York Giants, head to Cleveland to take on Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns that are favored by 6.5 points. And this game is going to be ugly. You can call it a slugfest, but this game is going to be ugly. This isn't a game that good football will be played and no points will be scored. This is a game where it's going to be Browns' good defense versus Giants' bad offense. Browns' bad offense versus Giants' bad defense. And the question is, which of the bads is going to be better? Is that Giants' defense going to be able to step up with the names along their offensive line? Are they going to be able to play the way that they did against Washington? I know kind of is a whole nother beast, but you could say that Washington offense is similar to this Cleveland offense in as far as, skill level, right? With Deshaun Watson in there, who hasn't proven he's been able to really throw the ball down the field with any kind of effectiveness, which is kind of where we're sitting with Jaden Daniels and the rookie quarterbacks. Jaden Daniels threw about 30 screen passes in that game. The Giants couldn't stop the run, though, and the Cleveland Browns are a team that will run the ball at you. Jerome Ford proved that they have a couple of really good running backs, even without Nick Chubb back there. So if the Giants can't stop the run, this game could get out of hand. I don't necessarily think this is going to be a fun game. But the Giants have a kicker now, and I think they're gonna kick a couple field goals. Final score: Cleveland wins 14-9 in a very, very ugly football game. Getting out of that, this is a game. This is one of the closest games of the week. Chicago traveling to Indiana. Caleb Williams and the Bears, that offense has really struggled all season long. We take a look as far as that defense, it's been one of the best units in all of football, a top 5 unit. We talk about the Titans and we talk about Will Levis and what he's done not taking care of the football. I think the Bears are in a very similar situation. That defense is awesome. Both the Titans and the Bears defense are awesome. The offenses need some work. If Caleb Williams needs to have a little bit more time in the pocket. He's able to get the ball out on screen passes, but he hasn't been able to really push the ball downfield at all without getting pressure. The amount of pressure he took on Sunday Night Football is not a normal amount of pressure. On 37 dropbacks, he was pressured 36 times. That's not normal. That's not okay if you're the Bears' offensive line. And the Bears haven't really been able to run the ball. But against a Indianapolis defense that has been very susceptible to the run, if they're able to get some success on the ground with DeAndre Swift and their stable of running backs, it could really open things up for their defense. On the other side, you have the loose cannon in Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson could go off for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns against anyone. He also could do what he did against the Packers, throw for 3 interceptions and tank the Colts' chances to win a very winnable game. This one against a good Bears defense, I think is going to sit somewhere in between. I don't necessarily think he's going to have that Cam Newton style incredible game. Colts are favored by 1.5 at home. I think the Bears come in and pull off the upset. It's not going to be incredibly high scoring. I think the Bears are going to be able to run the ball a little bit more effectively, and until the Colts defense is able to stop them, I don't think it's going to be the most effective run attack, but that Colts defense has been unable to stop any kind of run attack all season long. I don't see why that's going to start now. The Chicago Bears head into Indy, send the Colts to 0-3, win 20-17. And then the other possible game of the week, as the Houston Texans travel to Minnesota to face Sam Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings. Texans favored by 2 in this one. The Texans are coming off a game that I was incredibly impressed by. The Texans are coming off of a game that, looking at the box score, again, I just talked about some of those defensive numbers, but CJ Stroud is awesome. Nico Collins is a beast. Big, physical receiver, able to catch just about anything. His connection with CJ Stroud is something special. Where CJ Stroud is able to put the ball, especially down the sideline, we've seen it a couple of the weeks in a row. Last week on Sunday Night Football with that one-handed catch on the sideline in Week 1 to seal the game against the Colts. A toe tap, perfectly placed ball to Nico Collins. That is a dangerous matchup. But you can't just focus all your attention on him. They have Joe Mixon. That run game is what they like to focus on. The Houston Texans like to run the ball a lot and use passing as a kind of secondary threat, build off the run. They also have Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell. That is an offense that is incredibly difficult to cover, and I don't think this Minnesota defense, as good as Brian Flores is at designing things, as scheming things, as good as Brian Flores is at scheming things up, he isn't, a wizard, right? He isn't this guy that's going to take this defense that's a little bit less talented than it's been playing and stop this CJ Stroud-led offense. That being said, on the other side, Justin Jefferson is coming off of a huge game. We saw what the Texans defense did, and honestly, as good as they played pressure-wise, I think Minnesota's going to be able to exploit some of their defensive strategy. Taking a look at, where they stand. Taking a look at their weapons with Aaron Jones, how he's been able to run the ball effectively, something that the Bears just weren't able to do, so the Texans were able to tee off on the quarterback, really get into that blitz package passing attack, because the Bears just had to run the ball or pass the ball. They didn't really have a choice. I think the Minnesota Vikings are going to have that decision. The defense isn't going to be as dominant. It still should be good, but the Minnesota Vikings absolutely have a shot here. This isn't something where you can count them out immediately. That being said, Texans win 27-20 on the road. Next game is a little, I won't say super interesting, actually. This one is probably going to be a blowout. The Denver Broncos and Bo Nix travel all the way down to Florida to take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Baker Mayfield. I just flat out don't believe in Bo Nix and the Broncos. I wish I did. I wish I could say something nice about them. The defense under Pat Surtain isn't enough, right? That offensive weapons they have, maybe he can shut down one of Chris Godwin or Mike Evans, but you're not going to be able to shut both of them down. Baker Mayfield has been playing really good the first couple of weeks. I know he had a kind of pedestrian week 2, but week 1 he looked incredible. This is a Denver Broncos team that has not been able to throw the ball further than 5 yards down the field, and they haven't been able to run the ball for more than 2 yards a carry. That's not a successful way to run an NFL offense. The way that we're looking at it here. Because of that, I just think this is going to be a blowout. Tampa Bay is favored by 6.5 points at home. I think they win by almost 30. I just don't think it's going to be very close. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers win 38-7. Green Bay travels to Tennessee. Malik Willis, most likely revenge game, although Jordan Love has practiced the last couple games. This is a very different game if Jordan Love is playing. If Jordan Love is playing, the Packers win. Even if he's not at 100%, I truly do believe that. Although this is a very good Titans defense, I wouldn't rush him in against this kind of Titans defense that's just been dominating every single team they go up against. If Malik Willis is playing, as okay and as turnover-free as Malik Willis played against the Colts, they're not going to be able to run the ball 40 times against this Titans unit. This is a game and a defense that they're not just going to be able to run the ball through. They need to rely on Malik Willis to throw the ball, and I do not believe in the Packers in that situation. Call me a Malik Willis hater all you want. I fall squarely in that camp. I don't think he is an NFL quarterback caliber thrower. I think he's a guy that you can run. I mean, he only threw the ball 9 times last week, right? Like he isn't this great NFL quarterback after one game. The Titans win if Malik Willis is playing 17-14. If Jordan Love is playing, Green Bay wins this game. We're going to go with a score of 20-17. So, keep an eye out on that. That's going to be an important injury update as we head further down. The final of the 1 o'clock games. Carolina travels to Las Vegas. Vegas is favored by 5. Andy Dalton comes in the game, and I think that offense is going to look better. The Panthers have scored less than 10 points in each of their first 2 games. I think they break that 10-point margin against a defense in Las Vegas that, while I think they should get a lot of pressure off the edge with Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins, this is not a very good secondary. And I think there's going to be a couple of times where someone gets loose. Maybe they get a couple deep, big plays. I don't think it's going to be enough, though. Gardner Minshew has been playing really well, getting a lot of passing options. Devontae Adams should cook that defense. The Panthers lose 13-24. Heading into the 4 o'clock games, Miami, the Tua-less Miami Dolphins, head into Seattle to take on Geno Smith and the Seattle Seahawks. Geno Smith is coming off of a perfect game. Literally a perfect game. No throws were off target. The first time anyone's done that since 2021. Very impressive. This Dolphins defense has been very impressive as well. Even without Tua, I've talked about how Skylar Thompson has the ability to run this offense productively. You know, he's not going to have a huge drop-off. It's not going to be the best, but it's not going to be this crazy huge drop-off that a lot of people are expecting. We're not going to see a high-flying Miami Dolphins offense, but this is a Miami Dolphins offense that I think can keep pace with a mediocre defense, a mediocre team like the Seattle Seahawks. The Dolphins pull off the 4.5-point upset here, winning in Seattle 23-21. Then we get a good one, an interesting one. There's a lot of really good games this week, actually, as we head into the last couple of games that we're going to go over, only the ones on Sunday. There's 2 Monday night games. But Baltimore heading down to Dallas in Jerry World. It's a pick'em game. -1 is where it stands right now for Baltimore. And Baltimore, like I've said, has its issues. They need to focus on the run game. Their defense is good enough to copy what the Saints did, put a lot of pressure on CeeDee Lamb. Don't let him get single coverage ever. Always shift safety over to him, double cover him, whatever you have to do. Don't let him get open. If you're the Ravens, if you're any team playing the Cowboys, you say, I'm not going to let CeeDee Lamb beat me. If Zeke Elliott, Rico Dowdle, Brandon Cooks, if they beat me, hats off to them. Congratulations, you guys beat me. I'm not going to let CeeDee Lamb beat me, and I think that's what the rest of the NFL is saying. We saw the Saints not really shut them down. 4 for 90 with a touchdown isn't the worst stat line in the world, but still, it worked. The offense was super ineffective because they can't run the ball. And their weapons outside of CeeDee Lamb just aren't quite up to par. Because of that, I think Baltimore's going to win this game, although it will be a close one because Baltimore just loves playing close games. Baltimore wins 27-24. Detroit -3 heading to Arizona. The last 2 times these teams have played, it has been a shootout. A shootout in every sense of the word. 44-38 or something like that last time. I think this one ends the same way. Detroit on top this time. I've been very impressed with the Cardinals' offense. That defense needs some work. The Lions, I think, will be able to run the ball down the Cardinals' throats, especially if they're able to start fast. If they're not able to start fast, this game could get ugly. But this is going to be 2 very high-powered offenses going up against each other, just like it has been the last couple of times they played. It's going to be high-scoring. It's going to be fun. Detroit wins 44-38. 2 more games before we end our segment. The 2 most beat-up teams in the entirety of the NFL. The San Francisco 49ers travel to take on division opponent Los Angeles Rams. The 49ers favored by 6.5. And the Rams are beat up and down to high heaven and back. It's not looking good for them. They're down 4 or 5 offensive linemen. They're down 2 of their best receivers. They can't run the ball effectively because they don't have that offensive line. The San Francisco defense is going to tee off against this Rams offense. It's not going to be pretty. I think Matthew Stafford still puts them in position to score a couple of points. But I think the 49ers get a huge bounce-back game against a division opponent, win 31-20. And the last game of the day, Sunday Night Football, the Kansas City Chiefs, favored by 3 points, travel to the Atlanta Falcons and Kirk Cousins. The second straight primetime Kirk Cousins game. As good as they were in the last 2 minutes, the Falcons' offense really struggled against an Eagles defense, and that wasn't getting a lot of pressure. Chris Jones will dismantle that offensive line. We saw what TJ Watt did to it. Chris Jones is on that same level, if not better. It's going to be a long day for Kirk Cousins back there. Lots of dink and dunk passes. He's not going to be able to push the ball downfield. Bijan needs to be involved. He needs to get that threat of running the ball in and done quickly. If they can do that, they stand a little bit of a chance, but I don't think it's going to be too effective. The Kansas City Chiefs win 27-17. But let me know if there's any game that you think I'm way off on. I'd love to hear your game picks. Go ahead and throw those in the comments for me. Which games this week are you most excited for? Let me know. But we're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to head into our college football game picks. We have 10 of the juiciest, most exciting matchups for you I've prepared. We're going to talk about all of them, including a ranked matchup tonight. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube. Absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Friday, September 20th. If you are just tuning in, we just finished going over our NFL game picks. A huge game for a huge weekend. A lot of really, really great games. In this segment, though, we are going to go over the college football slate. There were 10 games I'm really excited for this weekend out of all of college football. We're going to break down all of them, including a game tonight between two ranked opponents. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments, throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Friday, September 20th. But like I was saying, in this segment here, we are going to get into the college football slate. Week 4 is here already. I cannot believe it. There are 10 games I've picked out of every single FBS matchup that I wanted to go over. I thought were very big, important games, or games that had a chance of being upsets. The first one takes place tonight. We have number 24 Illinois traveling to Nebraska to take on the number 22 Cornhuskers. Cornhuskers are favored by 7.5 points right now. This game is going to be a battle between good offense and good defense. The Illinois defense has been very impressive thus far, forcing a lot of turnovers, holding a lot of teams that are substandard to around 20 points a game, to which their offense has been able to outscore that. This is a very good Nebraska team, though. Dylan Raiola, doing his whole Patrick Mahomes thing, which, side note, it's a little creepy to me. I'm not a big fan of that there. But Dylan Raiola is doing his thing with Nebraska, and they are ranked number 22 for a reason. This is not going to be an easy game. This is not going to be like Kansas. Dylan Raiola and the Nebraska Cornhuskers are not going to turn the ball over 3 or 4 times to give you a one-possession win. This is going to be a game where you're just simply going to outplay them defensively. That's going to be the most important thing. This is the best defense that the Cornhuskers have gone up against all season, so this is going to be kind of prove-it game for both of these units, for the Illinois defense and for the Nebraska offense. I'm very curious to see how this is going to turn out. In my opinion, though, I think the Nebraska offense is going to be too much for Illinois. It's going to be close. Nebraska favored by 7.5. I think Nebraska pulls this one off 30-20. But this one could easily go the other way. I really do think this is going to be a fun game to watch tonight. Heading into Saturday's action, there's 9 games I want to focus on, and we're going to start off with upset alert as UNC is hosting James Madison. James Madison, one of the premier Group of 5 schools in the nation since transferring up to the FBS level. They've been incredibly successful in their first 2 seasons, being ranked in the top 25. They have taken a step back. They lost their coach. They lost a lot of players. They all play at Indiana now. Indiana having itself a solid season. Keep an eye out for them over there. But JMU heading down to UNC with a chance to put a statement win on their season. UNC 3-0 behind the powers of running back Omarion Hampton. And that is where this game is going to hinge. Omarion Hampton's been awesome. This JMU defense, generally stout against the run, has been able to has been a defense that you've been able to run through a little bit. The offense for JMU has not been very good, especially in the first half. Starting quarterback Alonzo Barnett has been almost seemingly unable to move the ball in the first half of games. The second half for JMU has been much better in both of their first 2 games this season. That being said, it's not good enough. Omarion Hampton is one of the best running backs in the country. He's a guy that I think in this game is going to feast. I think he's going to go for somewhere around 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. And while neither of these teams really have a quarterback, that is going to be a huge difference maker. I think 10.5 on the spread is way too much, but I do think UNC is able to pull this one off, avoid the upset. JMU loses 24-17. Getting to another Virginia school, as Virginia Tech, the Hokies, host the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. This game, I think, is maybe as close to a pick'em as you can get in college football. Virginia Tech and Rutgers, I feel, are kind of mirror images of each other. They're kind of the same team. They both don't have the greatest offenses. Their defense, especially on Rutgers, is going to be the thing that carries them. Kyron, you have that one offensive player that if they're able to go off, you're going to win the game. For Virginia Tech, that's quarterback Kyron Jones. For Rutgers, that's running back Kyle Monangai. These are both some incredibly explosive athletes that can completely change the game, flip it on its head, but if you look at the defenses, that's where this is going to make a difference. Rutgers' defense has been really solid. Virginia Tech's defense hasn't been as good as you want it to be. They gave up a lot of points to Vanderbilt. They gave up a lot of points to Marshall, although they were able to shut them down. I think this Rutgers team is better than Marshall, probably along the same level as a Vanderbilt team. Virginia Tech favored at 3.5 at home. They did have to play Vandy in Vandy. That's an important distinction there. That Virginia Tech home crowd is a very important factor. They get loud down there in Blacksburg, Virginia. But I think Rutgers is able to come in. Big Ten matchup. Kyle Monangai is going to be able to put this team on its back. Rutgers wins 27-23. Up next, Kansas traveling to West Virginia. Kansas formerly ranked. They've dropped their last 2 games. They turned the ball over way too much. West Virginia favored by 2 points. Both of these teams turn the ball over a lot. Whoever wins the turnover battle in this game is going to win. And I know I sound like a broken record. I say that a lot whenever we talk about Kansas, because Kansas is a team that was ranked in the top 25 for a reason, because they're good. When they don't turn the ball over, they are able to sustain drives. They're able to run effective offense. The fact of the matter is that in the last 2 weeks, they've turned the ball over way too much against solid opponents. Illinois, they turned the ball over way too much and lost by 1 possession. UNLV last week, they turned the ball over way too much, were unable to get a crucial turnover on their end, and they lose by 1 possession. That's been the story of Kansas' season. If they can play clean football, they can win this game. That being said, West Virginia also has a turnover issue. I was talking with a friend about this. They were saying, if there's going to be a game that a pick 6 happens, it's going to be this one. And I'm not bold enough to sit here and say, a pick 6 is going to happen. But he's right. If there is a game that it's going to happen, it's going to be this one. I think Kansas pulls off the upset and wins 32-27 on the road. West Virginia is kind of going through a slump right now after giving up a huge lead in the backyard brawl against Pitt last week. Let's see if they can come back. This is going to be a close one. Turnover battle is going to decide this one. Then we have UVA, favored by 3.5 points, taking on Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina has been very, very impressive. The Virginia O-line hasn't been the best. The Coastal Carolina defense, especially their run defense, has been... the Coastal Carolina offense, especially the run offense, has been incredibly impressive. Over 200 yards per game on the ground. Quarterback situation has been just fine. This is going to come down to whether Anthony Colandrea can continue to be that kind of quarterback we've seen out of Virginia. I've been down on Virginia all year. I don't think that's going to stop now. Coastal is a very, very good team, a very good Group of 5 program. They have an outside chance if a couple of those top Group of 5 contenders drop a game or two to sneak into that last Group of 5 spot for the playoffs. It's an outside chance, but they're a team that is in contention for it. I think Coastal pulls off the upset here, winning 30-23. Then we get our second of 4 ranked matchups this week as number 11 USC travels to the Big House to take on number 18 Michigan. Michigan has made a change at quarterback. Alex Orji is in the game now at quarterback. He's a guy that has been the rushing quarterback out of the 2-quarterback system for Michigan. Sharon Moore made that switch after throwing 5 interceptions against Arkansas State. That's not going to fly against any kind of good team. The issue is, Orji has only thrown 7 career passes since he's a junior right now. He's only thrown 7 passes in his whole career. This is not a guy that I think can sustain a passing attack. And against a team like USC, who was able to shut down a rushing attack like LSU, who was able to, play top 10 football, they're ranked 11 in the nation for a reason. We saw what happened the last time Michigan went up against a real team in Texas. They got absolutely destroyed. Got walked out of their own stadium. And I think it's going to happen again. I think USC is going to come in, send a message, say, hey, Michigan, you're done. And I think they lose this game and they fall out of the top 25. USC wins 35-18. Then we get a really interesting one. And this is one of the games I'm actually the most excited for this weekend, as Georgia Tech travels to Louisville to take on the number 19 Cardinals. This game is going to be a lot of fun. Louisville's offense is a powerhouse. It's a machine. They seemingly score every single possession. The issue is they've struggled against the run, specifically against a rushing threat quarterback, and that is Georgia Tech surmised. Haynes King, we saw him do it against Florida State. We saw him do it in week 2, and we saw him to a certain extent do it in their loss to Syracuse. He scored a bunch of touchdowns on the ground. He is a guy that will continue to run the football. That is the big threat with Haynes King, and that is where Louisville has been struggling a little bit. We saw it against Jacksonville State. They weren't able to really slow down their rushing quarterback. Now, the offense was by far more than enough, and I think it's going to be a similar theme in this one, but Georgia Tech is a dangerous team. Don't let them stick around. They are a team that will, in clutch moments, step up. We've seen it time and time again this season, keeping games close, even when it seems like they're far out of it. I think Louisville pulls off the win, but it's going to be a lot too close for comfort. They're favored by 10.5, and I think that's way too many points. Louisville wins, but it's going to be close, 39-34. And then the game I'm the most excited for. Number 12, Utah, traveling to number 14, Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State favored by 2.5. And the reason I'm excited for this game is because we get Cam Rising. He's expected to play in this one. This is a massive, massive game. Whoever wins this one is going to have a huge leg up on the standings in the Big 12. The winner of this game is going to cement themselves as the favorite in that Big 12. This is a huge, huge game. Again, Cam Rising is the key to this game. That Utah defense is going to do what it needs to do. It always will. That Utah defense is great. Alan Bowman, we've seen be really effective the last couple games in games where Ollie Gordon and that rushing attack just haven't been up to par, haven't been up to snuff, haven't been what we expected out of a guy who was in Heisman talks early in the season. Ollie Gordon hasn't been that kind of super effective guy that we were looking at and expecting him to be. But Alan Bowman has really stepped up to the plate, done a really good job, throwing for over 400 yards last week in a bounce-back effort after an ugly, ugly win against Arkansas. You can't do that against Utah, though. You can't play like you did against Arkansas against Utah because they're not going to let you back in the game. Utah's a team that's not going to make those mistakes. And especially with Cam Rising playing, they're going to have an offense. If Cam Rising plays, they win this game. And I think that's that much of a factor. Easy, point blank, period. I don't think it makes a difference if he doesn't play. That offense isn't going to be good enough. I think reports are that he's supposed to play. I think this game goes to overtime, though. I think Utah wins 31-29 in double overtime. 2 games left I wanted to focus on. The final of the ranked matchups as number 6 Tennessee travels to number 15 Oklahoma in an SEC battle. Tennessee has just been a powerhouse all season long. Their quarterback, Nico Ion-Veleda, has been near unstoppable, and that's not going to stop tonight. The Oklahoma defense has been beatable, I will say. They've been beatable, and this Tennessee team just kind of looks like it's got everything put together. Tennessee favored by 7.5 on the road. I think they dominate this one, win 41-27. The last game I wanted to cover, number 13 Kansas State travels to BYU. Kansas State favored by 6.5. people are hyping up BYU a lot, but I just saw Kansas State go host Arizona, a team that I thought was really, really good, especially offensively. While BYU might have a better defense, their offense is nowhere near that of Arizona. And Kansas State was able to shut them down and look comfortable doing it. So I have Kansas State winning this one 34-17. But let me know which one of these games you're the most excited for. If there's a game on here that I missed that you are the most excited for, I would love to hear your thoughts on that. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to get into MLB Power Rankings. That's right, our famous Friday MLB Power Rankings, the second to last one. The season is coming up on the end. I think we have 1 or 2 more weeks of Power Rankings before we hit the playoffs. Shohei Ohtani did something special. We'll talk about all of that and more coming up next here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we just finished going over our college football Week 4 game picks. In this segment, we're going to get into our famous Friday MLB Power Rankings. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Friday, September 20th. But like I was saying, we are going to end our show on our famous Sports by GSMC Podcast Network MLB Power Rankings. And starting at the very bottom, who else but the Chicago White Sox? The Chicago White Sox chasing history. They continue to race to the bottom. The Chicago White Sox, as we currently stand, are 4 games away from breaking that dubious record. Currently sitting at a not-so-good 36-117 with just about 10 games to go left in their season. A .235 win percentage is disgusting. There's just really no other way to put it. The Chicago White Sox are staring down the barrel of the worst team ever unless they can turn it around in their last couple of series. We look at it now, they're running out of time. They've only got 9 games remaining on their season. And, I mean, they need to win more than half of them. They need to go over 500 to avoid this fate. So it's not impossible, but still not where you want to be. At 29, the Miami Marlins, another eliminated team from the playoffs as teams are starting to clinch and get eliminated this week. Marlins have been eliminated for some time, though. Them and the Rockies sitting comfortably at the bottom of the NL. At 27, the Los Angeles Angels. And, I mean, again, We talk about the bottom tier of teams, them and the Nationals, the Nationals and the Athletics, I will say, kind of round that out. All of those teams have been eliminated. There's a few more as well, that being the Pirates and the Reds. 23 to 30 in our power rankings have all been eliminated right now. That's just where they sit, as well as 21 the Giants. But the Blue Jays, they're still technically alive out there, still technically alive and kicking. The Giants got eliminated on a walk-off last night. The Blue Jays probably are one game, maybe even half a game from elimination at this point. Those bottom teams are done. There hasn't been too much to look at, too many positives. There's a lot of these young teams you look at, like the Nationals, like the Athletics. The Athletics with Brent Rooker. Brent Rooker, 40 home runs, hitting 300. Very underrated season out of him. He needs to get more love. The Nats have their young stars that are starting to come out. The Pirates are similar, same with the Reds. But all of these teams at the bottom are eliminated from playoff contention, or all but eliminated from playoff contention. As we continue up, row 20 to 17 are these teams that are barely clinging on to life. The Rays, the Rangers, the Cardinals, the Red Sox, all of these teams technically still alive. That being said, they're all but done at this point. They've dug themselves a hole that's just a little bit too big to dig out of, in my opinion. The Red Sox and the Rays, 4 and 5 games out of a wild card right now. As far as the Cardinals go, 8 games back. They're just about done. And the Red Sox and the Rangers, of course, 7 games back as well. All of these teams are just about done at this point. There's not too much. Just play for pride. The Mariners at 16 seemed like they were going on a little bit of a roll there. They're 2 games back. They still technically have the shot, but the race has really heated up between the Tigers and the Twins. The Tigers and the Twins are tied in that wild card, that final wild card spot right now. It is going to get very interesting as we get further down the road in our AL wild card hunt. At 15, it's the Cubs. And the Cubs are another team that are just outside of playoff contention. 7 games out. They're just too far at this point, unfortunately. You're going to need to get about 85 wins or more, because that's where it stands right now, 85 wins. The Cubs basically need to be perfect to end the season. They have the schedule to do it, and they've been hot, but it's just a little too late as far as the Cubs go. At 14, we have the Minnesota Twins. And the Minnesota Twins have been slipping fast. The Detroit Tigers have been the hottest team in the league since August 11th. 25-10. They're now tied with the Twins for that final wild card spot, and the Twins are in real danger of losing it. In fact, the Tigers, the way they're playing, might even pass the Royals, who currently are 2 games up on them, and in that second wild card spot, it's going to be a dramatic finish in the AL wild card race, and don't count out those Seattle Mariners. They're still in it as well. The Braves, down 3 spots as they just continue to fade. They just are falling out of the race. They're 2 games back at this point, and it feels like they're fading too quickly. It feels like they've run out of gas. A team that was really going off of fumes, vibes, and the power of friendship with all the injuries that it has sustained. The Braves are going to have to get healthy and come back next season because their roster is stacked. At number 12, the Astros stay put. Same thing with the Royals. Both of these teams have just been winning the games they need to win. Both of these teams are basically locks for the playoffs. So far, the Astros haven't clinched yet. The Seattle Mariners are still nipping at their toes, but they have a 99.2% chance to make the playoffs. They should make it without really much of a worry. The Royals, on the other hand, have to worry. They're only up 2 games, and, you take a look at their schedule, not necessarily the easiest. They get the Giants and the Nats, but then they get the Braves to finish out the season. And that these last couple games, these last couple series are going to be very, very important, especially when you have a team like the Tigers who are really, really coming at you. The Orioles are struggling too. We talked all about the Tigers, who are up 4 spots to number 10, how they're the hottest team in baseball right now. But The Orioles, down 3, have been one of the most disappointing teams in baseball. They just DFA'd their closer, Craig Kimbrell. He hasn't been very good for a lot of the season. This is a huge loss for them. That bullpen is struggling. That pitching staff is a little worrying. Their bats are injured. They're getting back, but they need to get back soon. The Orioles continue to fall. They're down 6 spots in 2 weeks. The Mets up to number 8, up a spot as they just continue to win games. Again, they've cemented themselves in the playoffs at this point. They're up 2 games on the Braves. They're tied for that second wildcard spot with the Diamondbacks. I think they even have that tiebreaker. So this is going to be interesting, a finish in both of these wild cards. The Padres and the Diamondbacks seemingly have clinched a playoff spot. Again, the Mets are in there as well. All of them are above the Braves at this point. That's all we're waiting for. And now we get to our top 5. These are teams that have all clinched, I believe. All clinched a playoff spot, starting with the Brewers, the first team in the league to clinch a playoff spot. They've clinched their division. They're up 10 games on the Cubs in their division. They are going to be a top 3 seed. They're going to be able to host a game, a series. That's very exciting for the Brewers, a team that's just been consistently good. They're not at the same level as the Dodgers or the Phillies. They're 3 games back of them, so there's still a chance they're able to get that top seed, but they're gonna wrap up that 3 seed. Get a solid. They're not gonna get a bye, but they're gonna get to pick their wild card game. At 4, the Cleveland Guardians. The Cleveland Guardians, just again, much like the Brewers, have been solid all season. They've clinched their playoff spot. They're at 89-65. Currently tied for the best record in the American League. They're fighting with the Yankees, who also clinched at 89-64 for that 1 seed and the bye. At number 2 and number 1, the Philadelphia Phillies sit at 1, but the Dodgers sit at 2. The Dodgers, with Shohei Ohtani coming off of an incredible night, maybe the best night in the history of baseball as far as the offensive end. Not only does he reach that 50-50 mark, he hits 51-51. He win in a game that they win 20-4. He has over 17 bases. He didn't hit 4 home runs. That's the first time over 17 bases, and not more than 4 home runs have been hit. It's kind of insane what Shohei Ohtani is able to do, and I know it's against the Marlins, but 6 for 6, 4 runs, 2 doubles, 2 home runs, ridiculous. Not a normal stat line. Shohei Ohtani is maybe the best baseball player I have ever seen. But let me know what you think of these power rankings. The Phillies reign on top yet again, tied with that Dodgers for the number 1 seed in the NL. The playoffs are coming up upon us. This is going to be right at the edge for the final. I think we have one more power ranking coming up, and then we get to the playoffs. But thank you everybody so much for sticking around, for talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Friday, September 20th. I have been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. You've been tuning in to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Enjoy football this weekend. Enjoy all the games. It should be a great weekend of sports. We'll be back on Monday to break down all of it. I will see you same time, same place then. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the